Captain Steve Collins looked out the large window of the Horizons Bridge. The stars looked the same as they always did during his 15 years with the United Earth Space Command. But today was different. Today, humans would not be alone in the universe anymore. "Captain, the alien ship is asking permission to dock," said Jack Miller, the communications officer. His voice shook a little. Everyone on the bridge felt the same mix of excitement and fear. Steve took a deep breath. "Tell them they have permission to dock at Bay 3, and tell Lieutenant Baker to meet me there." The message had come 3 days ago. A ship from something called the Galactic Confederation wanted to talk to humans. They said they had been watching Earth for some time. Now, they wanted to meet. Steve walked quickly through the ship's hallways. Other crew members stepped aside, nodding respectfully. Everyone knew what was happening today. History was being made. Lieutenant Olivia Baker waited by the airlock door. As the ship's exobiologist, she had studied possible alien life for years. Now she would meet real aliens. "Nervous, Lieutenant?" Steve asked. Olivia adjusted her uniform. "Terrified, sir, but in a good way." A light flashed, showing the alien ship had connected to their airlock. Steve straightened his back and nodded to the security team. "Open the door." The airlock hissed. "Open." Steve had imagined this moment many times. He had pictured aliens of all shapes and sizes, but nothing prepared him for what came through the door. The aliens were tall and thin, with skin that shimmered with rainbow colors when they moved. They had 4 arms each and moved so gracefully they seemed to float. Their eyes were large and completely black. 5 of them entered the ship, all wearing what looked like special suits. The one in front stepped toward Steve and Olivia. "I am Zintox, ambassador of the Galactic Confederation." The alien's voice sounded musical, almost like it was singing the words. "We greet the people of Earth." Steve found his voice. "I am Captain Steve Collins. This is Lieutenant Olivia Baker. We welcome you to the Horizon on behalf of all humans." Zintox tilted his head. "We request a meeting place to discuss important matters." "Of course. Please follow me to our conference room." As they walked, Steve noticed something strange. The aliens moved very carefully, as if they were afraid. One of them jumped when a crew member came around a corner. Another kept looking at the floor as if it might break. In the conference room, the aliens sat down slowly, testing the chairs first. They placed a small device on the table that glowed softly. "This will help us communicate better," Zintox explained. Steve nodded. "We're honored to be the first humans to meet members of the Galactic Confederation. We have many questions." "As do we?" said Zintox. "Though we have studied your broadcasts for years, there is much we do not understand." The alien paused. "Your species evolved on what we classify as a Class 12 death world." Olivia leaned forward. "Death world? You mean Earth?" Another alien, who Zintox introduced as Claxel, their science officer, spoke up. "Yes, a death world is a planet with conditions so extreme that most intelligent life would not survive there." Steve frowned. "Earth seems perfectly fine to us." "That is what puzzles us," said Zintox. "The gravity on your planet should have crushed your developing bodies. Your atmosphere contains corrosive oxygen. Your world has millions of venomous creatures, extreme temperature changes, and frequent natural disasters." Olivia looked surprised. "That's just Earth. It's home." The aliens exchanged looks of alarm. Claxel whispered something to Zintox, who visibly paled, his rainbow skin turning almost white. "You sleep?" Zintox asked, horror clear in his voice. "Your consciousness turns off for hours while predators could attack." Steve smiled. "We call it a good night's rest." "And you expose your bodies to frozen water for enjoyment?" Claxel asked, looking at pictures of skiing on a screen nearby. "Some of us do, yes," said Olivia. "We call it sports or recreation." Oh, third alien, who had not spoken until now, stood up suddenly. "Ambassador, they are even more remarkable than we thought." Zintox nodded slowly. "Indeed, Vornak. Steve cleared his throat. May I ask why you've contacted us now? We have watched your planet for centuries, said Zintox. At first, we did not believe intelligent life could evolve in such harsh conditions. Then, when we detected your early radio signals, we assumed you would destroy yourselves quickly, as most young species do. But you survived, continued Claxel. Not only survived, but thrived. You created art, science, and technology while living on a planet that should have killed you long ago. When you began exploring your solar system, added Vornak, the Council decided it was time to make contact. Steve exchanged glances with Olivia. Are all planets in the Confederation different from Earth? Most inhabited worlds are Class 3 to Class 5, explained Zintox. Stable temperatures, low gravity, no predators, few weather events. We have never encountered a species from a Class 12 planet before, said Claxel, studying Olivia and Steve with wide eyes. Your bodies must be incredibly resilient. One of the other aliens finally spoke. Show them, Ambassador. Zintox hesitated, then rolled up his sleeve. Under the shimmering skin, his arm looked fragile, like thin glass tubes filled with glowing liquid. Our bodies evolved for gentle environments, he explained. A fall from your height would shatter my bones. The pressure in this room is already uncomfortable for us. These suits help us adapt. Steve began to understand their fear. To them, humans were creatures who had evolved in hell and somehow survived. And you eat the flesh of other creatures? Asked the fifth alien, who had been quiet until now. Yes, said Olivia. We're omnivores. We eat plants and animals. The aliens looked at each other in what seemed like disgusted amazement. Is that why you've contacted us? Asked Steve. Because we're tough? Zintox folded his four hands together. The Galactic Confederation consists of over 300 species from thousands of worlds. We share knowledge, resources, and protection. We would like to invite humanity to join us. That's wonderful news, said Steve, smiling. Earth's governments will be very interested. There is another reason, added Zintox more quietly. Species with your abilities are rare and valuable. Some less peaceful groups might try to exploit you. You want to protect us? Asked Olivia. And perhaps, said Claxel, we wish to ensure you remain peaceful. A species with your physical capabilities could be concerning, if hostile. Steve understood the unspoken message. The Confederation wanted to keep an eye on the dangerous humans. We come in peace, he assured them. Humans have a long history of violence, it's true, but we've learned from our mistakes. The meeting continued for hours. The aliens asked countless questions about human biology, history, and culture. They seemed especially interested in how humans dealt with pain, danger, and fear. When the aliens finally returned to their ship, Steve and Olivia stood alone in the airlock. So, said Olivia with a small laugh, we're space monsters. Steve smiled. Looks that way. I never thought our first alien contact would be them afraid of us. That night, Steve wrote in his personal log, First contact complete. They think we're practically indestructible super beings. I didn't have the heart to tell them about allergies. Tomorrow we begin negotiations for Earth to join the Galactic Confederation. I wonder what other surprises we'll discover about each other. One thing is certain. The universe is stranger than we ever imagined. 6 months had passed since first contact. The huge space station called Nexus floated in the empty space between star systems. It was the meeting place for all members of the Galactic Confederation. And now, it had a new section. The Earth. Embassy Ambassador Julia Ramirez stood by the large window in her office. Outside, ships of all shapes and sizes moved around the station. Some looked like shining bubbles. Others resembled giant insects. All of them carried beings from different worlds. Ambassador, the station safety officer is here again, said Alan. Peterson, her diplomatic aide. He tried not to sound tired. Julia turned and smiled. Send him in, please. Tixval entered the room. He was from a species called the Morax, short purple beings with 6 limbs and large eyes that never seemed to blink. As the station's safety officer, He visited the Earth Embassy almost every day with new concerns. "Ambassador Ramirez," he said, his translator making his high voice sound flat. "I must again discuss the breathing situation with your people." Julia sat down at her desk and motioned for Tixval to sit as well. "What seems to be the problem today?" "Our sensors show your people are still not using the air filters we provided," said Tixval. His large eyes looked worried. "The station air contains particles that could harm delicate breathing systems. No, we don't need specialized breathing apparatus," Julia explained patiently, for what felt like the 12th time. "Humans can filter ordinary particles with our nasal passages." Tixval made a noise that sounded like bells tinkling. "Fascinating and disturbing. Your species filters toxins through your face?" "They're not toxins to us," Julia said. "Just dust. Our noses clean the air before it reaches our lungs." Tixval made notes on his small screen. "And this causes no damage to your systems?" "None at all. It's how we're designed." The safety officer looked like he wanted to say more, but just then, the door opened. Alan Peterson entered carrying a tray with his lunch. On it was a sandwich, an apple, and a cup of water. Tixval's eyes widened even more. "What is that object?" he asked, pointing at the sandwich. Alan looked confused. "My lunch. It's a sandwich." "You're consuming it? For nutrition?" Tixval stood up quickly. "But it contains both plant and animal substances mixed together." Alan looked at Julia, who sighed. She knew what was coming. "Yes," she said. "Humans are omnivores. We eat both plants and animals." At the same time, Tixval was already using his communication device. "This must be reported. The biochemical interactions could be dangerous." Before Julia could explain further, 2 more station officials arrived. One was tall and thin with skin that looked like blue crystal. The other had a round body with tentacles. Both stared at Alan's sandwich. "Is it true?" asked the crystal being. "You consume multiple biological categories simultaneously?" "It's just a sandwich," Alan said. He was getting hungry and the sandwich was getting cold. For the next hour, Julia found herself explaining human eating habits to a growing group of alien officials. They took samples of the sandwich. They scanned Alan's stomach. They brought in specialists who studied extreme biological processes. By the time they left, Alan's lunch break was long over, and his sandwich had been taken away for further study. Julia laughed as the door closed behind them. "I'm sorry about your lunch, Alan. I'll have the kitchen make you another one." "That's the 3rd time this week," Alan said with a smile. "You'd think they'd never seen someone eat before." "Not like we do," Julia reminded him. "Remember, most species here are either plant eaters or meat eaters, not both. And they have simple, digestive systems. What we find normal, they find impossible." Later that afternoon, Julia met with Commander Frank Wilson, the embassy's security chief. They were discussing the upcoming Galactic Summit when they were interrupted by a delegation of medical officers. "We have reviewed the health records you shared," said the lead medical officer, a floating cloud of gas contained in a clear bubble. "We have questions about human Frank Wilson." Frank looked surprised. "Me? What questions?" The gas cloud moved closer. "Our records show you broke your leg support limb as a child, yet you now have a fully functional limb. How is this possible?" "You mean when I broke my leg when I was 10? Frank asked. "It healed. That's what bones do." This caused great excitement among the medical officers. They spoke quickly to each other in their own languages. Gorval, the Brixian ambassador who happened to be passing by, stopped to listen. His eye stalks quivered with disbelief. "You regrew a structural support limb?" Gorval asked. "It's called healing," Frank explained. "All humans do it. Our bones can repair themselves if they break." "Without technology?" asked one of the medical officers. "Without replacing parts?" asked another. "Yes," said Frank. "Our bodies do it naturally." The news spread quickly through the station. By evening, the embassy was flooded with messages from various species wanting to learn more about human regenerative capabilities. Julia was about to leave for the day when the station's alert system activated. A calm voice announced, "Attention, all species. A temporary gravity failure will affect Section 12 in 5 minutes. Please secure yourselves according to your species' safety protocols." Section 12 was where the Earth Embassy was located. Julia quickly sent a message to all human staff. "Gravity failing soon. No cause for alarm. Secure loose items." When the gravity turned off, the humans in the embassy simply adapted. They held onto handrails or pushed themselves gently from surface to surface. Years of space training had prepared them for zero gravity. But outside the embassy, chaos erupted. Many species had never experienced zero gravity. Some curled into protective balls. Others released sticky substances to attach themselves to walls. Some simply floated helplessly, spinning slowly in the air. A group of diplomats from other worlds had been meeting near the embassy when the gravity failed. They watched in amazement as Julia and her staff moved easily through the air to help them. "You can function without gravity?" asked a diplomat with feathers. "Of course," said Julia, helping the diplomat grasp a handrail. "It takes some practice, but it's not difficult." "But how do your internal organs know what to do?" asked another. "They just keep working," Julia explained. By the time the gravity was restored an hour later, word had spread throughout the station. The humans could survive. In zero gravity with no special equipment, they could move and work normally while other species were incapacitated. That evening, Julia found 17 messages waiting for her. They were all from different species, all requesting military alliances with Earth. "This is getting ridiculous," she told Alan as they reviewed the messages. "They think we're some kind of super beings." "Aren't we?" Alan joked. "We eat anything, breathe dust, heal broken bones, and float through the air. Sounds pretty super to me." Julia smiled, but she was worried. The other species didn't want Earth's technology, which was far behind most galactic standards. They wanted humans themselves, as if they were weapons. "We need to help them understand," she said. "We're not indestructible. We're just adapted to different conditions." But as she looked out at the stars, Julia wondered if understanding was possible. To the rest of the galaxy, Earth was a nightmare world that should have killed its inhabitants. Instead, it had created a species that could eat poison, breathe toxins, repair massive damage, and survive in space. No wonder they were afraid. 1 year had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation. Things had settled into a pattern. The other species no longer jumped in surprise when they saw humans in the hallways of Nexus Station. They still watched carefully, but the initial shock had faded. That changed on the day the Drakari arrived. Nicole Martinez was in the main council chamber when it happened. As Earth's chief explorer, she represented humanity during discussions about new planet discoveries. She noticed the room grow quiet as the doors opened. The beings that entered looked like walking lizards. They stood on 2 legs and had scales, in various shades of green and brown. Their eyes were yellow with black slits down the middle. They moved with quick, sharp motions that reminded Nicole of Earth's predatory reptiles. "The Drakari Empire," whispered a Brixian diplomat next to her. The lead Drakari, wearing armor decorated with metal plates, walked to the center of the room. His tail swung behind him like a weapon. "I am Supreme Commander Sithrak," he announced, his voice a low hiss. "The Drakari Empire wishes to address the council." The room grew tense. Nicole had heard about the Drakari during her briefings. They controlled many planets at the edge of Confederate space. They were not members, but they were powerful. "The Council recognizes Supreme Commander Sithrak," said the council leader, a tall being made of what looked like blue crystal. Sithrak's yellow eyes scanned the room until they stopped on Nicole. His mouth opened slightly, showing sharp teeth. "We have come concerning the mammals from the planet called Earth," he hissed. "These soft-skinned creatures claim extraordinary abilities. They say they come from a Class 12 death world." Nicole sat up straighter. She didn't like being called a creature. "The classification is correct," said the council leader. "Earth meets all criteria for a Class 12 world. We demand verification, said Sithrak. No species can evolve true intelligence on such a world. It defies biological law. What verification do you seek? Asked the council leader. Sithrak's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. We demand the trial of worlds. The room erupted in noise. Species from all corners of the galaxy spoke at once. Some sounded worried, others excited. The council leader had to call for order 3 times. Nicole leaned over to the Brixian diplomat. What is the trial of worlds? An ancient challenge, the Brixian whispered. When a species' capabilities are questioned, they must prove themselves by surviving on hostile planets without technology. Nicole felt her heart beat faster. This sounded bad. The trial of worlds has not been invoked in 700 years, said the council leader, because no claims were as outrageous as the humans, hissed Sithrak. If they truly evolved on a death world, let them prove their resilience. All eyes turned to Nicole. She knew she should wait, should call Earth for instructions. But something in the Drakari's dismissive tone made her angry. Nicole stood up. Earth accepts the challenge. The room went completely silent. Later that day, Nicole sat in the Earth Embassy's communication room. On the large screen, President Gregory Williams looked very unhappy. You did what? He asked, his voice loud even through the speakers. I accepted the trial of worlds, Nicole repeated. The Drakari challenged our classification as a death world species. No species has ever backed down from a trial of worlds and maintained diplomatic standing. Do you understand what you've committed us to? The president ran a hand through his gray hair. We have to send people to survive on alien worlds without technology. Yes, sir. 5 planets over 15 days, 3 days on each world. And if we fail, Earth would be reclassified. We would lose standing in the Confederation. And... Nicole hesitated. And what? The Drakari would gain the right to claim 1 Earth territory for study. The president closed his eyes briefly. Wonderful. We could lose part of our planet because you got angry at a lizard. I'm sorry, sir. But I believe we can do this. Humans are more adaptable than any species out here. That's why they're so fascinated by us. After a long silence, the president nodded. Fine, but you're leading the team. Nicole had already expected that. I'll need 4 more people, the best we have. Who do you want? Doug Harris, the wilderness survival expert. Sharon Lewis, the military doctor. Paul Rodriguez, the geologist. And Wendy Clark, the marine biologist. Why those specific people? Asked the president. Because they're adaptable. They can think on their feet. They've all survived extreme situations before. We don't need the strongest humans, sir. We need the smartest. 2 weeks later, the team assembled on Nexus Station. They had trained together, studied all available information about the 5 challenge worlds, and prepared as much as possible. Remember, Nicole told them as they waited to board the Confederation ship that would take them to the first world. This isn't just about survival. It's about showing the galaxy what humans can do. No pressure, joked Doug, a tall man with a beard who had once survived 60 days alone in the Arctic. Question, said Sharon, the doctor. Are we allowed to bring anything? Only the clothes we're wearing, replied Nicole. No tools, no weapons, no supplies. Great, said Paul, the geologist. He was shorter than the others, but had strong hands from years of climbing mountains. Just like my camping trips in college. Wendy, the marine biologist, laughed. Except these won't be Earth mountains or Earth oceans. The Confederation ship was large and filled with observers from many species. The Drakari had sent their own delegation, led by a military officer named Krazutir. He watched the humans with unblinking yellow eyes. The first world is Karash, announced the trial overseer, a being made of shifting smoke inside a container. It has twice Earth's gravity and an atmosphere with sulfur compounds. Temperature varies from very hot during day to freezing at night. Nicole nodded. They had prepared for this. High gravity would be hard on their bodies, but humans could adapt. The sulfur would make breathing difficult but not impossible. Observers will remain in sealed environments, continued the overseer. The humans must survive for 3 full planetary days, which equal 76 Earth hours. They must find water, food, and shelter using only what they find on the planet. The ship landed on Karash the next day. Through the windows, Nicole could see a barren landscape with red dirt and strange gray plants. The sky was a sickly yellow. Ready? She asked her team. They nodded, though their faces looked serious. They understood the danger. The airlock door opened. Nicole felt the heavy gravity immediately pulling at her body. The air had a sharp, rotten egg smell from the sulfur. Let's go, she said, taking the first step onto the alien world. The Drakari watched from their observation bubble, clearly expecting the humans to collapse in the heavy gravity. Instead, Nicole led her team toward a group of rocks in the distance. First priority is shelter, she called over her shoulder. Then water. Doug knelt to examine the gray plants. These contain moisture, he said, breaking one open to show a wet interior. And they might filter the sulfur. Sharon quickly made simple masks from plant fibers. Paul found rocks they could use as tools. Wendy discovered small creatures living under the rocks that might be safe to eat. By the end of the first day, the human team had built a shelter from rocks and plants, found water in a deep crevice, and created basic tools. In their observation bubbles, the alien delegates watched in amazement. The Drakari observers looked less pleased with each hour that passed. On the second day, a dust storm hit the area. The observers expected the humans to seek refuge in their shelter. Instead, Nicole led her team out into the storm. What are they doing? Asked Kraz Tyr, the Drakari officer. The particles will damage their breathing systems. They're exploring, replied the trial overseer. The humans appear to be collecting specimens. Indeed, the team returned hours later with several new plant types and small creatures they had found exposed by the storm. They were documenting the new species, expanding human knowledge even during a survival challenge. When the 3 days ended, the humans boarded the ship tired and dirty but unharmed. The Drakari looked angry. The other observers crowded around the humans with questions. 1 world down, 4 to go, Nicole told her team as they rested. Next is Vexpor, the ice world. Piece of cake, said Doug with a smile. After Karash, I could use some cool air. The journey had just begun, but Nicole felt confident. Humans had always been survivors. Now they would show the galaxy just how remarkable that survival could be. 1 year after Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, a new problem emerged. Most species had grown used to humans and their strange abilities. Some even tried to copy human ways. But not everyone in the galaxy welcomed the newcomers from the Death World. The trouble began during a regular meeting of the Galactic Council. Representatives from all member worlds gathered in the great circular hall of Nexus Station. Earth's representative, Nicole Martinez, sat quietly listening to discussions about trade routes. The large doors at the far end of the hall suddenly burst open. A group of tall, muscular beings entered. Their bodies were covered in green and brown scales. They had long tails and yellow eyes with narrow black slits. Their faces looked like Earth's crocodiles. Sharp teeth showed when they opened their mouths. The Drakari Empire demands to be heard, announced their leader, a large male with scars across his snout. The council chairperson, a being made of shimmering blue crystal, nodded slowly. The council recognizes Supreme Commander Sithrak of the Drakari Empire. The scaled being moved to the center of the room. His yellow eyes scanned the gathered representatives until they stopped on Nicole. His mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing many pointed teeth. We have come to challenge the classification of the planet called Earth, he said, his voice a deep hiss. No world rated as Class 12 can produce intelligent life. It defies all biological laws. Nicole sat up straighter. The Drakari were not members of the Confederation. They ruled many worlds at the edge of known space. They were known for their military strength and aggressive nature. Earth's classification was confirmed by our scientific council, said the chairperson. Science can be corrupted, replied Sithrak. These soft-skinned mammals claim extraordinary abilities. We demand proof. What kind of proof? Asked Nicole, speaking for the first time. The Drakari commander turned to face her directly. "We demand the trial of worlds." The room filled with gasps and whispers. Nicole noticed many representatives looking worried. "The trial of worlds has not been invoked in 700 years, said the chairperson. "What is the trial of worlds?" Nicole asked the Brixian representative sitting next to her. "An ancient challenge," the Brixian whispered. "A species must prove their abilities by surviving on 5 different hostile planets without technology. It is rarely used because it is very dangerous," Nicole thought quickly. Earth needed to maintain its standing in the Confederation, and something about the Drakari's dismissive attitude made her angry. "Earth accepts the challenge," she said, standing up. The room went completely silent. "You know not what you do, human," said Sithrak, his tail swishing behind him. Later that day, Nicole had to explain her decision to President Gregory Williams back on Earth. His face on the video screen looked very unhappy. "You committed us to an alien survival contest without asking permission," he said. "I'm sorry, Mr. President, but no species has ever refused the trial of worlds and kept their respect in the Confederation. The Drakari were questioning our very nature." The president sighed deeply. "What exactly does this trial involve?" 5 different planets, 3 days on each, no technology allowed. We must survive using only what we find on each world. And if we fail, Earth would be reclassified as a lower category planet. We would lose standing in the Confederation, and the Drakari would gain rights to study Earth territories, added an advisor standing behind the president. "Great," said the president. "So who goes on this suicide mission?" "I'll lead the team," Nicole said, "and I'll need 4 more people. Not the strongest humans, but the most adaptable." 2 weeks later, Nicole met with her team on Nexus Station. She had chosen carefully. Doug Harris, a wilderness survival expert who had once lived alone in the Arctic for 2 months. Sharon Lewis, a military doctor with experience treating injuries in extreme conditions. Paul Rodriguez, a geologist who understood how to find water and shelter in different terrains. And Wendy Clark, a marine biologist who specialized in dangerous ocean environments. "The rules are simple," Nicole told them. "We get dropped on 5 different planets. We have to survive for 3 days on each planet using only what we find there. No weapons, no tools, no supplies except the clothes we're wearing." "Sounds like my vacation last year," joked Doug, running a hand through his beard. "This is serious," said Sharon. "These planets were chosen to test our limits." "That's exactly why we'll succeed," said Nicole. "No species out there understands limits like humans do. We've spent our entire history pushing past them." The Confederation ship carrying the human team and dozens of alien observers departed the next day. Kraz Tir, a Drakari military officer, led the enemy delegation. He watched the humans with cold reptilian eyes. "The first world is Karash," announced the trial overseer. "It has twice Earth's gravity and toxic atmosphere with high levels of sulfur compounds. Day temperature reaches 50 degrees Celsius. Night drops to -20. The ship landed on Karash and the observers moved into sealed bubbles that would protect them from the harsh environment. The humans stood at the airlock door, ready to step onto the alien world. "Remember," said Nicole quietly, "we're not just surviving. We're showing the galaxy what humans can do." The door opened. The heavy gravity hit them immediately, like a weight pressing down on their shoulders. The air smelled like rotten eggs from the sulfur. The red landscape looked barren, with strange gray plants scattered across it. The Drakari observers watched from their bubble, clearly expecting the humans to collapse or struggle to breathe. Instead, the team moved forward steadily. "First priority is masks," said Doug, breaking open one of the gray plants to reveal moist fibers inside. "These can filter the air." Within hours, the humans had created breathing masks from the plant. Fibers. The masks filtered out most of the sulfur, making the air breathable. By the end of the first day, they had built a simple shelter from rocks and plant materials, found water in a deep crevice, and identified several edible root-like organisms. "How are they doing this?" asked one of the Confederation observers. "Their homeworld prepared them for harsh conditions," replied the overseer. "They are adapting as they claim all humans can." The Drakari observer, Kraz Tir, watched with narrowed eyes. On the second day, a massive dust storm hit the region. The observers expected the humans to hide in their shelter. Instead, Nicole led the team out into the storm. "What are they doing?" asked Kraztir. "The particles will damage their breathing systems." "They are exploring," said the overseer. "The humans appear to be collecting specimens." Indeed, the team returned hours later with several new plant types and small creatures they had found. Exposed by the storm, they were documenting new species even during a survival challenge. By the end of the third day, the human team had not just survived, they had thrived. They had created better tools, improved their shelter, and even started a small garden with the faster-growing plants. When they returned to the ship, tired but unharmed, the alien observers crowded around them with questions. The Drakari delegates stood apart, their scaled faces unreadable. "One world down, 4 to go," Nicole told her team as they rested. "Next is Vexpor, the ice world." On Vexpor, temperatures never rose above -90 degrees Celsius. The planet was covered in ice and snow. The Drakari were sure humans could not survive such extreme cold. But the team quickly built snow shelters like Inuit igloos. They hunted the large, furry creatures that lived beneath the ice and used their thick pelts to make warm clothing. They melted ice with friction tools they created from bones. By the end of day 3, they had established a comfortable camp and were exploring the surrounding ice fields. The third world, Nixar, had constant electrical storms that disrupted all technology. The humans used the lightning to create fire and crafted glass-like tools from sand melted by lightning strikes. They found shelter in deep caves and discovered glowing fungi that provided light in the darkness. With each world, the observers' amazement grew. The Drakari's confidence visibly shrank. Before the fourth challenge, Kraztir approached Nicole. "How?" he asked simply. "How do your kind adapt so quickly?" Nicole smiled. "It's what humans do. We change to fit our environment, instead of requiring the environment to fit us." Before the fifth world could be visited, Supreme Commander Sithrak sent a message to the Confederation Council. The Drakari Empire formally withdrew their challenge. Earth would remain classified as a Class 12 death world, and its inhabitants recognized as remarkable survivors. In a private message, Sithrak admitted to Nicole, "We cannot comprehend how you survive, but we acknowledge Earth as the most dangerous death world in known space. It would be unwise to make enemies of such beings." Nicole returned to Earth with her team as heroes. They had proven to the galaxy that humans were not just strange curiosities, they were survival experts without equal. The journey had just begun, but humanity had secured its place among the stars. 2 years had passed since the Trial of Worlds. Humans were no longer just strange creatures from a deadly planet. They had proven themselves as survivors beyond compare. Many species in the Galactic Confederation now sought human help for their most dangerous problems. Samantha Foster sat at her desk in the newly formed Human Emergency Response Team headquarters on Nexus Station. As director of HERT, she reviewed requests from across the galaxy. Most were simple: humans to work in high-gravity mining operations or to explore planets with harsh atmospheres. But the message she received today was different. "Director Foster," said her assistant, George Powell, "we've received an urgent message from the Kuvari. Their entire home system is in danger." Samantha looked up from her screen. The Kuvari were one of the oldest species in the Confederation. They rarely asked anyone for help. "What kind of danger?" she asked. "A rogue pulsar," George replied. "It's on a collision course with their home system. The radiation will make their planets uninhabitable in less than a month." Samantha stood up. "Set up a meeting with their representatives immediately." An hour later, Samantha sat across from Elder Shin of the Kuvari. The alien looked like a tall, thin human made of golden crystal. Light seemed to pass through Elder Shin's body, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. "We have detected a neutron star on an unusual path," Elder Shin explained. "Our scientists calculate it will pass through the outer edge of our home system in 27 days. The radiation will destroy all life on our worlds." "Can your people evacuate?" asked Samantha. We have ships, yes, said Elder Shin, but not enough for 8 billion Kuvari, and the radiation will begin affecting our systems soon, making evacuation more difficult with each passing day. Why come to us? Samantha asked. The Confederation has many species with more advanced technology than humans. Elder Jin's crystal body shimmered. Technology is not what we need. We need beings who understand survival against impossible odds. Your species knows how to face certain death and still find a way forward. The Trial of Worlds proved this. Samantha thought carefully. I'll assemble a team immediately. We'll leave for your system within 8 hours. The team Samantha selected included 5 specialists. Rick Johnson, the best pilot in Earth's space fleet who had flown through asteroid fields no computer would attempt. Lisa Garcia, an expert in radiation who had worked in nuclear disaster zones. Ben Nelson, a structural engineer who designed shelters in Earth's most dangerous environments. Cynthia Taylor, who coordinated rescue operations after major natural disasters. And Daniel Edwards, a medical officer with experience treating extreme environmental injuries. They departed on the fastest available ship. During the journey, they studied everything they could about the Kuvari civilization. The crystalline beings had evolved on worlds with stable climates and few natural disasters. Their technology was incredibly advanced but delicate. Their bodies, while beautiful, were fragile compared to humans. When they arrived in the Kuvari system, they saw a civilization in panic. Ships moved in all directions. The 5 outer planets had already been abandoned. The 3 inner worlds, including the Kuvari homeworld, held billions of frightened beings trying to evacuate. The human team met with the Kuvari leadership in their central command center. Hundreds of crystal beings worked at stations monitoring the approaching pulsar. We have begun evacuation, said Elder Shin, but our ships are experiencing failures as radiation levels increase. At current rates, we can only save 20% of our population. Rick studied the Kuvari ships. Let me see one of these vessels, he said. An hour later, the humans had discovered the problem. The Kuvari ships were technological marvels, but they were not designed for harsh conditions. Their technology is far advanced, but it's too delicate, Lisa explained after inspecting a ship's systems. Their radiation shields fail at levels humans can tolerate with minimal protection. Ben looked at the ship's construction. We can modify these vessels, create simple shields using materials the Kuvari consider waste. We need to prioritize, said Samantha. Cynthia, work with the Kuvari to organize the evacuation. Lisa and Ben find a way to protect their ships. Rick, determine safe flight paths through the increasing radiation. Daniel, see if you can help. The Kuvari themselves withstand higher radiation levels. The humans worked without rest. Ben designed makeshift radiation shields using simple metals that the Kuvari had never considered useful for protection. Lisa recalibrated the ship's sensors to function in higher radiation. Daniel discovered that basic iodine compounds could provide temporary protection for the crystalline beings. When the radiation began affecting the Kuvari evacuation centers, causing their crystal structures to crack and weaken, the human team personally carried thousands of the fragile aliens to safety. The Kuvari were amazed at how the humans could function in radiation levels that caused their own people to fracture. Your bodies absorb the energy that destroys us, said one Kuvari scientist in wonder. We evolved with radiation on our world, explained Daniel. Our cells can repair minor damage, it's nothing special to us. But the Kuvari saw it as miraculous. The most dramatic moment came 7 days into the mission. The largest evacuation ship, carrying nearly 30,000 Kuvari, lost power as it approached the radiation front. Its crystal crew became too weak to function. They'll be destroyed if they stay there, said Samantha. The radiation will shatter every being on board. Rick stepped forward. I can fly it through. The radiation levels in that sector are lethal, warned Lisa. Even for a human. Not immediately lethal, Rick corrected. I'll have approximately 40 minutes before serious damage occurs. The flight path takes 32 minutes. I have an 8-minute safety margin. Before anyone could stop him, Rick boarded a small shuttle and docked with the stranded Kuvari ship. He took manual control of the massive vessel and piloted it through the radiation wake of the approaching pulsar. The ship's external sensors failed. Navigation systems shut down. Rick flew by instinct and the few instruments that still functioned. 35 minutes later, the ship emerged on the safe side of the radiation front. Rick collapsed at the controls, his body burning with radiation poisoning. But he was alive, and he had saved 30,000 Kavari. Daniel treated Rick with emergency radiation protocols. "You'll live," he told his teammate, "though you might glow in the dark for a while." Over the next 3 weeks, the humans helped the Kavari evacuate, more than 7 billion of their people. When the pulsar finally passed through the edge of the system, it left 3 dead worlds behind. But the Kavari civilization had survived. In a formal ceremony, Elder Shin presented the humans with the highest honor in Kavari culture, crystal shards that had once been part of their ancestors. "You did not simply save lives," Elder Shin announced. "You have taught us that probabilities are not destinies. This is the true gift of the Deathworlders." As the human team prepared to return to Nexus Station, Samantha reflected on their mission. Humans had not used advanced technology or superior weapons to save the Kavari. They had used the very traits that evolved on their harsh homeworld: endurance, adaptability, and a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy was beginning to understand that Earth's greatest export wasn't its technology or resources. It was its people, beings shaped by a world that should have killed them, but instead made them uniquely suited to survive whatever the universe threw at them. The Deathworlders had become the lifesavers,